we have 15 to 20 minutes max, so I really only want about 5 minutes from each of the groups. Okay. Okay. So do you want to start, Clinton? All right. And so just remind us what you were talking about.
Yeah. So we sort of went. Oh no. This is me trying to be nice to the AV people. Probably for the first time ever, actually. So we went into our room. We were meant to be talking about attracting new participants and involving people outside of the formal structures. So you may remember, you may remember that the how to involve people outside of the formal structures was actually the topic that I brought up. And somehow someone gave me the superpower to sort of direct the discussion down that line. Yeah. So that's all we ended up actually talking about. It was a wide-ranging discussion. So I think the skinny of it is that Linux Australia, so specifically I was talking about Linux Australia, where in the days and weeks leading up to the last election, there are a lot of people with a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas on the mailing list, and how do we try and encourage those people to implement some of those ideas and get them off the sidelines and into the contributing community. Not, as Donna put it, like how does the embittered non-council person contribute to the community? Not getting in? Best birthday present ever. So we had a sort of wide-ranging discussion, and I was trying not to lead it down just the LA path, trying to make it a worthwhile discussion for people who really don't care a whit about LA, which, most people really shouldn't. It's just a council with some money and an insurance policy behind it.
As a pitch for LA, having heard about it the past hour, it's really interesting that there's this organization we can look to as like this free and open source advocacy organization who's like really doing functional kind of stuff. And like, how does that model work? How successful are you? What like lessons can other people learn from it? So like, don't downplay how much like caring about this is worth, because I think it's a lot.
Yeah, and we've, LA's been around. It does a lot of nice things, but it's also a clusterfuck of an organisation from certain other aspects as well.
Look at me. I've never been on the council.
Oh, this is why. Yes. So. Look at me. I have. So there were a wide range of discussions, and there were a lot of different types of contributions. So there's code contributions, there's meetup contributions, as in like running a meetup, organising a meetup, doing talks at a meetup, small projects, large projects. We tried to distill from that sort of 3 areas that we could put all of these comments under. So we sort of came up with encouraging people, enabling people to contribute, and recognising people when they contributed. So we've got a fair bit of content for that, but essentially it comes. So one of the interesting ideas for me was actually adding an office bearer's role to LA to be some sort of community liaison officer. So actually, hilariously, from the back of my brain, adding more process to let non-process people actually contribute. But I think that's a really interesting idea. Using the face-to-face stuff that happens at meetings to inspire people, following up with that with an onboarding process and with status updates after the conference is over. We all know that we all get inspired at these conferences, so we should follow up with that. Strike while the iron's hot. And enablement, that's mostly what I followed up with there. Mentorship, so the idea of having people who specifically look out for people contributing to the groups. One of the interesting ideas that came up was the first contribution to your project is actually testing your community. And that was a really strong idea for me, that if somebody gives you a contribution and it's their first contribution specifically, your reaction to that is a really strong feedback loop for that person to ever contribute again. So really looking out for the first contributors and really trying to help them through. So I think overall what I'd like to say is we have a lot of ideas, and we can actually turn some of these ideas into a proper block of processes, and we can actually write a proposal to Linux Australia to add some sort of official office bearer's position for membership, contribution, mentoring, organisation, coordination, that sort of stuff. And that's me. Unless any of my other team members want to add anything.
So the action item out of that was to turn a bunch of great ideas that came up in discussion into processes and write proposals for an office bearer, something.
Well, it's yeah.
Sure. Or your organisation.
So specifically, someone whose job it is to enable, encourage, and recognise membership contributions. Not-for-profit group, by the way, Donna. Yeah. Yeah, but we didn't want to use that. Yeah, and we're a not-for-profit group, Donna, by the way, so we're definitely not profiting. I think I need a few drinks before I ask anymore. So. Manages community contributions, encourages, enables and recognises community contributions. Do you want this one?
Long-lasting organisational change and large organisation challenges. Lock. So we had 4 of us, which is not a large organisation, but 4 is a good number that was a bit of a support group in some ways, and I think out of that was also it's valuable to have a support group in some of these things. When you are faced with, large challenges, a support group can be good. And we had a couple of interesting sort of points and tales. So there's a lot of sort of storytelling of things that we tried and things we'd observed and how things worked out, which is really sort of comparing notes, which may not be a here do this necessarily, but is a good starting point. And a theme was, to have win individual allies. You can't win everyone at once, and it will grow from there. So it's viral almost in a way of, you know, the infection spreads. Pardon? Can we not call open source an infection? This is cancer, I think. But and I mean, there's some challenges in large organizations that were common, and there's two distinct different ones. One of which is that in a large organization, just say if you have a more open area, you can suddenly be assigned 100 new people who have never dealt with an open source thing before in their life. And there is pre-existing organization and process that may be completely opposite and foreign to you. And you now have to integrate them into this open source thing, or else you face failure. And there was a number of different stories of different organizations and how that is both pretty much an ongoing challenge of which we don't have answers for. But there's definitely a thing of, it's not a matter of attracting people to your cause and attracting people to your project. It's you now have 100 more. And the other part of that is large organization challenges when you have an existing culture of a company or a section of that company which is open, and as you add people to that who are foreign to that, so it's even just getting the individual people to understand what this thing is at all at a very basic level. So it's also you have 100 extra people to join, and then you have adding individual people and maintaining that over a long time, which are similar yet different problems. And part of the discussion that came out of that was perhaps induction training, both for people joining a company and for people who are joining an open part of a company, where it can be here is what is this open thing, and here is what this free software thing is, and this is what you're joining, and here's a navigation thing there.
So like when you first enter one of these large organisations, you have to do the occupational health and safety video and answer the quiz. You have to do the anti-sexual harassment video and then answer the quiz. You have to do your FOSS contribution video and answer the quiz.
Yes. And even from if we accidentally discovering that one already exists that no one knew about. I think everyone has some point written one that has... So takeaways is induction is probably a very good thing, and to find it and encourage that. The other thing is, some things are hard and we don't have answers for, and maybe a support group is the right answer.
There is a support group, forum discussion. There is a newly formed Linux Foundation working group called the To-Do Group, which is a semi-ad hoc roundtable of conversations between corporate directors of open source offices, where we sit and commiserate and beat out some solutions to some of these problems.
And I think the other takeaway was that a lot of the time we've seen success is when we sort of win individual allies and do it in a small scale and help grow that. And the other big takeaway was sometimes in a corporate environment, it's not so much convincing individual people, it's in a management chain. So sometimes you need to learn how to talk manager and executive, and that's a challenge that some people do well and some people do horribly. Cool. Was there anything else we should cover from it? Cool. Okay, summary.
Thanks, mate. And then the reputation group was Adam and Jono and Mark, and I think, Mark, I'll ask you to sum up. It wasn't all about minions.
That's the only part I remember.
You could delegate.
You're the one who wanted it. So we talked about reputation and automated reputation scoring in an open source community, and some of the things we decided and discussed and mostly agreed on is even when you come up with an automated reputation score for actions, it is a terrible idea to let people see what their score is or to directly impact each other's scores. The scores and also if you do something like that, you never automatically have the score trigger something of value, but instead it should just be an indicator to the programmer community manager to alert them to there should be someone should be brought to their attention as being a significant developer and that if necessary, they should be at least you should be aware of them. Reward them with a T-shirt, a button, an attaboy, a nice button on their forum. One of the issues is there's such a plethora of different ways of doing interaction. Forums and mailing lists and pull requests and issues and get pulls, and not everything is on GitHub, and some people use forums, some people use mailing lists, and even on the same sort of forums or the same sort of forges, different projects use different ways of interacting, so you can't use the same set of metrics and the same calculation across lots of different projects and get same numbers. So we came to the conclusion that it's important because our communities are changing too fast and growing too fast to do this all in our head. But on the other hand, doing it with software is going to be very, very hard. Also, go see the Minions movie.
Okay, and I think that on that note, at 5:19, that brings us very neatly to a close for the end of today.